Welcome to the channel, Brad Takes Flight, where I share my journey with you on becoming a professional pilot. This week is an incredible step towards that milestone of turning my passion into a professional career. I'll be working on my commercial pilot's license, and this week in particular, it's going to be a very defining week. I'm going to take you through all the exhilarating highs, lows, and challenges that come along with turning your passion into a career. If you're new to the channel, hi. I'm Brad, and I'm currently at a Part 141 school, Blue Line Aviation in Smithfield, North Carolina. This week is a very interesting week as we're going to have a hybrid between two very critical phases of becoming a commercial pilot and getting your commercial license. Phase one of becoming a commercial pilot here at Blue Line focuses a lot around doing cross-country flight planning and the difference between IFR, VFR flights, towered, non-towered airports, and really what it takes to get people and cargo from point A to B over longer distances. Phase two is all about ground reference maneuvers and showing mastery of the aircraft as well as takeoff and landings. This week is going to be an exciting week as it's a hybrid between the two, as I'm going to have multiple cross-country flights as well as multiple maneuvering flights as I move into that final and last phase of maneuverings and really get ready for my ultimate check ride. Today is a great lead into that as I am going to start off this morning. It's about 6:45, 7 o'clock. We're going to get up and do a maneuvering flight, which is really great for me because it's been something that I haven't done in about a week or so. During that first phase, if you didn't see last week, we kind of started with the maneuvering flight and then went straight into cross country. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what's going to be expected of you. So that way you can get some of these maneuvers that are a bit harder to understand on paper into your mind and see what they're actually like, especially things like the lazy eights and eights on pylons and chandelles. Some of these maneuvers can be a bit harder to describe than they are to just actually fly them and see them demonstrated. It's been about a week since I've done any of those, so I'm excited to get back up, start brushing up on those as well. Then this afternoon, we'll be moving back into a cross-country flight. I'll give you more details on that after I get done with my maneuvers. See you in a bit. Absolutely awesome day of flying today. Got up and there is a cold front that is coming from the northwest through the southeast today. So the very first flight doing maneuvers, it was really gusty and kind of challenging to get up there and do especially ground-based maneuvers when you have winds around 20 knots is pretty challenging, but was able to get through. Felt pretty successful even though there was challenging conditions. It's good to be able to get up in really good conditions and more challenging conditions to kind of test yourself to see where you're at, especially when you're with a CFI and you're within their minimums and things like that. And that's kind of how you grow your own minimums and get more comfortable with the plane as well. So really happy with the way that first flight turned out. Landed probably 1 out of 4 of my short field landings within tolerances, I would say. That was a bit, disappointing. However, the one short field I did today, I absolutely nailed when I needed to. Better conditions, less challenging, but practicing those things is really what makes it possible. This afternoon was supposed to go down to Wilmington. However, that cold front was pushing right through Johnston at that time. Humidity had really picked up. It had gathered a good amount, and so we had some thunderstorms pushing out that way. So instead of going to the southeast, we went to the northwest against the front. Had to fight a bit of a headwind out towards Roanoke, but it was an absolutely gorgeous flight. Had a little bit of low ceilings as we went out there on the way. Nothing that was too challenging. We filed an IFR flight plan that was, easy enough. Went into Roanoke, touched down, left, came back, and ceilings had lifted to about 9,000 or so. And they weren't even really ceilings. It was still scattered at about 9,000, and all that stuff was pushing off to the southeast at the same time. So today was a great example of planning and why we study weather so much is so we can plan out our flights and make sure that we're safe while we're in the air and that we understand the conditions that we're going to get into before we ever take off. Really important to understand that stuff. Excited that I got everything done that I needed to get done today. Really excited for tomorrow. Have another ground lesson and then another night cross-country flight that we've got to get done. I'll catch you then. It is Tuesday at Blue Line Aviation and it is almost 3 o'clock. I have a ground lesson that's going to start at 5 and then a night flight where we're going to start up all of our briefing at about 8:30 and then take off around 9 o'clock for an entire night flight of cross country. 2 really exciting things that I'm really excited to get into today. The ground lesson is going to cover things like pilot qualifications, different types of carrying, as well as supplemental oxygen requirement. The flight tonight is set for Johnston to Wilmington and back. I think we're supposed to do a few laps in Wilmington as well. Not really sure how the ceilings are going to play out. Here at Blue Line, we're required that all night flights are done under VFR conditions. That means if for some reason the ceilings get a little low out there, we may divert to another one. So some other choices that we have if we need to divert, on the same East Coast side there is New Bern as well as Northern Myrtle Beach, the Grand Strand Airport. So that one is CRE or EWN for New Bern. And then we could also go towards Lynchburg, which is in the mountains, and I'm not crazy about going into the mountains at night. I've never been to Lynchburg during the day or at night, so I really wouldn't want to start off with a night flight. I'm sure my instructor has done it. But anytime you're flying at night, the navigation's just a little bit harder and you can't really see things as well, which is another reason why it's really important to make sure that you're clear of the clouds whenever you're in those conditions. Whether you filed IFR or not, it just makes things so much harder at night when you get into a cloud. I mean, you really can't see anything from what I'm told. And after flying at night and already seeing the limited navigation that I have there, don't really think that flying into clouds at night is anything that I'm really wanting to do yet. So that's the lineup for today. I'll let you know how everything goes once we wrap it all up. It's Wednesday morning at Blue Line at about 8:30, going in to get some studying done and get prepared for my day today. Yesterday, wanted to wrap that up real quick. I did end up doing some human factors as well in my ground lesson, and then we were supposed to fly to Wilmington. However, the ceilings were really weird. There was pretty much clear skies in the entire area except around Wilmington. They were showing scattered at about 1800, and also around Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, they were showing a few at 3500. So we kind of vectored around that stuff, and we ended up going into New Bern. I was able to get 4 landings there at a controlled tower at night, and then we turned around and came back, got some gas at Wayne Executive, and then parked it for the night. Really good flight. I feel like things went really well. My landings at night, I don't know if it's just because there's less thermals, less windiness, the asphalt isn't as hot, or what all is going on, but my landings seem to be really good. I'm much more on center line. I hit all of them on the thousands, like even with some of my base to final turns being a little bit off. Usually those need to be set up pretty well for you to get good landings, and even though they were off a little bit because the winds aloft were like 20 miles an hour, but then there was like no wind at surface level. It was really kind of some odd conditions last night, but the landings went really well. So happy with the progress of everything. Looking forward to getting into some more ground lessons today, and then we'll probably have a repeat of last night's flight. Now, whether we actually go to New Bern or we get to go to Wilmington today, we'll just see. Usually we go to Greensboro. However, Greensboro still only has 1 runway that's up. They have 3 runways, but only 1 in use right now. So we'll probably steer away from going to Greensboro. So it'll either be North Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, New Bern, or Lynchburg, I think, for the flight tonight. Definitely let you know as we get into that later. It's Thursday at Blue Line. Yesterday was really great. Got to go through my ground lessons on weather, which takes a long time. If you look at the ACS, you can see just all the layers of things you can kind of be asked about and that you need to be up on as far as passing your oral, but also for your planning purposes whenever you're looking at doing flights. As a commercial pilot, you're going to be doing more cross-country flights, so you're going to be looking at a vast area for the most part. As a commercial pilot, you're going to be looking at further distances instead of just local flights, and it could take a weekend or so. Now you've got a longer outlook that you also need to be planning around as well. Lots of considerations when it comes to weather. In the ground, we also covered airspaces. It was good to take a look at that stuff again. Some of the stuff I hadn't really looked at since my private as much, so getting refreshed on all of those things. I mean, obviously we're looking at airspaces whenever we're doing our planning, but sitting down and going through all the weather and equipment minimums and things like that, it's just good to get refreshed on all that stuff. For the night flight, we went back to New Bern. Still had some overcast issues. down in Wilmington as well as Myrtle Beach area, and there's a storm that was pushing through the mountains of Virginia that's now headed our way today, so that kind of knocked out Lynchburg as far as an option. So went back out to New Bern. Control tower was amazing out there, along with all of our ATC controllers going out there and back. Very chill flight. If you haven't been flying a lot and you don't have a lot of experience talking to ATC or the control tower, like the people operating them and their attitudes just mean a lot to you as a pilot as far as your comfort level for that flight. If they're overloaded and you can hear the stress in their voice, you're trying to do as much as possible to relieve some of that stress, but it's night, a lot less traffic, a lot less going on, so most of the time everybody's a little bit more chill. Again, kind of depends on the controller, but very chill. Everybody was really nice, lots of information, very kind of welcoming feeling on the comms, so that always makes the flight more enjoyable. Now, with that weather pushing through today, it doesn't look like there's any thunderstorms where we're at. However, the Savannah area does look like they're getting some thunderstorms and cumulus nimbus clouds, so we want to stay clear of that. Looks like we'll be heading to Pittsburgh if we can get this flight off today. We also have Piedmont Airlines at Blue Line today doing a presentation. I'm hoping to see them just for a minute or two before I have to skate out and go on to my flight. If I am flying today, should be able to find out. It's 11 o'clock now, a little before 11. My flight's supposed to start at 1. We'll be able to find out a little bit more about whether we're gonna do this flight or not. Doesn't look like there should be any issues right now, but you just never know how the weather's going to change. Either way, I'll be sure to recap you guys as soon as I get everything complete. An absolutely epic trip as I just got back from Pittsburgh. Wasn't too sure about the weather when we were leaving Johnston. There was, some showers moving in. Little worried about whether we would actually be able to leave or not, but there was no real lightning in the area. The storms kind of stayed off. And by the time we got up to Pittsburgh and came back, the storms had already kind of pushed through the area. So we ended up with really good flying conditions. Trip was a total of 5.4 hours up there and back, and then also got about half an hour worth of actual during the flight. Really good to get all those things in the book. Totally up on my instrument that I needed for my 141 program, so now I can turn around and just focus on my maneuvers going forward. Tomorrow, we do have a TFR in the area as President Biden is coming into RDU, so that's going to ground most of us through mid-afternoon. There are going to be some ground lessons, so I'll make sure to keep you up to date on that, but no flight. My flight for tomorrow did get moved to Saturday, so I've got one Saturday morning that I'm looking forward to, get back into the maneuvers and getting used to controlling the plane based on ground references again. Update you guys soon. Friday morning, and I am going to make my way into Blue Line shortly. My wife came into town, so I'm going to grab some breakfast with her before going into a ground lesson. Today's ground lesson is going to start up our longest ground lesson in commercial, which is going through the entire ACS basically from front to back in preparation for my mock check ride, which again will be a longer version of my then practical check ride, which will be hopefully here in the next couple of weeks. No flights today as there is a TFR or a temporary flight restriction for our area because President Biden is coming into Raleigh today. So I don't think anybody's allowed to do any flight training until I believe it ends at like 2:45, 3 o'clock. That's going to delay a lot of us getting up into the air today. I think there will be a few people that are able to go on cross-country flights, but as far as doing like maneuvering flights and things like that, it's just not possible with the TFR up today. The flight that I did have scheduled for today is being moved to tomorrow morning, so I'll still be able to get in that second maneuvering flight and continue to push forward. The evaluation flight that I was supposed to have as well this morning got moved to Tuesday, so should be able to still do a few of those maneuvering flights while I still get to that stage check flight, and that flight will make sure that I'm all good to go on actually being able to achieve a cross-country flight appropriately as a commercial pilot. We'll definitely be going through pilot qualifications today in the ground. I'll let you know what else we get through once we wrap it up. Really solid day today. Was able to get my ground lesson done. So for a couple of hours, went through the pilot requirements as well as the airworthy requirements for the airplane. Dipped our toe into weather, started talking about some air masses and things like that, but really didn't get deep down into weather just because there's so many tasks within inside of weather itself that it's hard to complete that one in the probably 20 minutes or so that we had to discuss it. Also attended the graduation ceremony. It's always good to see a handful of us as we're checking out, getting our certificates, and continuing on to the next phases of our careers here at Blue Line. And we have a DPE that is in town from Wichita, Kansas. This DPE was extremely gracious and was willing to give us a small little mini presentation over being a DPE, what it's like to be a DPE, different things that are shortcomings that he's currently seeing. So things like knowing the difference between ATC and flight services and what you're gonna get from each one of those. He's also seeing a lot of higher and more unstable approaches on finals. So keep that in mind as you're going through your own training. And probably the one that he led with and continued to repeat, which you can imagine having to deal with the FAA, is paperwork. So the more you're able to tab out your logbook, make sure that your name matches correctly across all of your documents. Those type of things are going to make their life easier, which is probably in turn going to make your life easier, just because they're not spending all this time with paperwork and other things, and you may not have the time. If they've got another check after yours, you may have to, incomplete it and come back to it if you're not able to get through everything. So make sure that you take some of those tips, apply to what you're doing now, and everything should be just fine. Tomorrow is going to be Saturday. I do have one flight that we're going to do tomorrow. I'll update you and see you then. It's Saturday at Blue Line, and I am ready for a maneuvering flight, but I don't think the weather is. As you can probably tell from the skies behind me, we've got overcast, and it's pretty low, around 1,200 feet or so, 800 to 1,200 feet, somewhere in that range. And it doesn't look like it's going to be really lifting off until about 10 or 11 o'clock. My flight is scheduled for 9:15. It's currently 8:40. We'll see how things go. The tops are at like 3,000, so it's a really thin layer. I don't know if we can file an IFR plan, get up on top, and then go VFR on top, be able to do some maneuvers. And then as everything clears out and we've done our high level maneuvers like power on, power off, accelerated stalls, chandelles, work like that, if then we can turn around and come back down and do some ground based work. I don't know if that's going to be allowed or not. We'll find out today. But as always, I'll definitely debrief you as soon as I wrap everything up. Great flight today. We were a little bit delayed in getting up, but we still got 2 hours in. Ripped some laps, did 12 of them, got all kinds of takeoff and landings in, did all my short field, soft field, and normal takeoffs, as well as did a variety of different landings. So I did my short field landings, my soft field landings, some normal landings, did a no flap landing, did 3 different landings that we incorporated slips into, as well as 3 power off 180s as well. It was really good to get that kind of work in. Not every instructor is super comfortable with doing slips. You want to make sure that you're with the right instructor when you're trying to do these, because they can lead to spins if you're not careful. So you need to understand what it is that you're doing, all the speeds you need to hit, being into the wind, full rudder, all those kind of things to really do that maneuver properly. But it is a very important maneuver for you to try and get comfortable with as well, because when you're in a life or death situation, you want every tool that's available to you. And if you're high and fast and you can't get down in a regular or full landing configuration, how are you going to do it? Slips can be the answer to that if you're in that situation. So it's really important to try and get all the tools that you possibly can into your tool belt, so that way you're the best pilot that you can possibly be when it's your time to be the only one in the plane or the PIC. So that's a wrap up for today. Let's go ahead and talk about the week. This week I was wrapping up a lot of my cross country, so there's a lot of cross country hours that are reflected in my total time. My total time was 17.1. I had 12.5 of cross country. I had 4.5 hours at night, and then I had 0.8 of instrument time. Most of that was actual instrument time. That brings my total hours up to 120.4, 67.9 of that being PIC, 47.4 hours of cross country flight, 10.8 at night, and then 43.4 instrument time, with 5.3 of that being actual. Really excited the way that everything is progressing. Won't get as much cross-country time now that we're moving into the maneuvering, but we'll still be continuing to build up some of that PIC time. Won't build up any instrument time next week, as everything is going to be kind of ground reference and we'll need VFR conditions in order to get those done. Really, I have one flight left, which is kind of a stage check. Flight 14 is the number here at Blue Line for us. That will be the last one of stage 1, and then trying to get through everything that I possibly can in stage 2 coming next week. So I should end up really close to being wrapped up, with my all-important commercial check ride being the following week. Can't wait to keep you guys updated. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. You can subscribe right here. You can also see another great video right here that's next in the series, or you can click on the entire playlist if you're new and see everything from day one. And as always, keep the grass off your wingtips, aviators.